Welcome to Pastoring in the Digital Parish, your resource and point of connection for bringing your congregation into the digital age and leveling up your digital ministry toolkit. I'm Ryan Dunn, your host and proctor for this digital ministry class that you just might have missed in seminary. We've had some really watershed kind of conversations lately. At least for me, these conversations have been super enlightening and challenging, particularly around the future of ministry. Our conversations with Charles Vogel about what people need now and what they're looking for, and our conversation with James Kang about future visioning in ministry, they really got the gears turning over what the future role of minister looks like. And then I got to thinking about the various people we've spoken with through this podcast in the past, especially those who've been checking in regards to how it started and how it's going in digital ministry. Those ministers are mostly part of niche ministries, at least in digital space. They found success in digital space because they've identified a tight community. So I've been entertaining all of these thoughts as I've been out traveling this summer and plugging in with some different churches and ministry groups. And I'll tell you, what I've found in connecting with many of these ministries is that when it comes to doing digital ministry, we're still very much event focused. Oftentimes, the event we're focusing on is the live streamed worship event. I've already done an episode on growing off of our worship service live stream. I'm not going to go back there today. Instead, I wanted to explore some similarities and distinctive traits of ministries that are growing in digital spaces. And I do this with a dawning realization that these traits aren't merely useful for online or digital only ministries. Rather, I believe that the church, in all of its expressions, could use to work with an awareness of these traits as we build faith communities of the future. These traits are reflective of the ways in which we facilitate relationships and build meaning in our digital age, which is an age that's not ending very soon. So again, we're going to explore the traits and commonalities of flourishing digital ministries. But yeah, it's not just about digital ministry. It's about the whole shape of the entire church. And I'll conclude this episode with a list of resources that help to shape my ongoing growth in digital ministry and my understanding of digital culture. As we get into it, let me offer that this session of Pastoring in the Digital Parish is presented by Safe Sanctuaries, nurturing trust within faith communities. Safe Sanctuaries is a new and comprehensive resource that continues the tradition of Safe Sanctuaries ministry by building on its trusted policies and procedures. To learn more, go to safersanctuaries.org or call 800-972-0433. I've got 6 common traits and practices that I've noticed in regards to flourishing digital communities. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Trait 1 is that their digital content provides authoritative, user-focused information. This is information that goes beyond telling someone about the who, what, when, where of your church community. It's content that is made with the goal of enlightening the user in mind. In short, it's content that's valuable for the information it provides the user. In my day job, I oversee the TikTok channel for the United Methodist denomination. And we generally rotate between a few different types of content on that channel. There are the repurposed informational videos, which often provide a story about an interesting ministry that's happening in the denomination. Then there are prayer and devotional videos. We also have many short quote videos featuring a smart alecky John Wesley bobblehead statuette. And then we have videos detailing United Methodist beliefs. Far and away, our most watched videos are those beliefs videos. And part of the reason for this is simply because this is the kind of content TikTok users expect the United Methodist denomination to provide. Let's face it, they don't expect bobblehead Wesley videos. They do expect us to provide info about what makes us distinctly United Methodists. So this is useful information for the user because they're seeking out our channel because they're curious about United Methodist beliefs or because they are United Methodists who want to have their theological positions confirmed or maybe even challenged in some way. And that brings us to an important note. The information about beliefs is what people expect for us to provide in that space. So what kind of information might users expect from your ministry to provide on your various digital platforms? I'm going to mention some digital ministry leaders and some content creators throughout this episode. I don't always agree theologically with all of these leaders, but I do find that they create content and connections that are meaningful for people, and they provide examples that we can all learn from. Ascension Presents is a digital imprint of Ascension Press. Now, Ascension Presents started a YouTube channel many years ago. I can't say when, but the channel has over 800,000 subscribers. The videos they make get thousands to hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of views. They've launched chart-topping podcasts out of this YouTube channel. And I think the impetus for their success in building this platform was that the topics of their videos were on point. It definitely was not the production value because the videos are low production. The presenters are charismatic and that helps, but the presenters are not over the top personalities. They're not comedians, nor are they like raging ranters who are going to grab hundreds of views simply because they have a lot of passion in what they're saying. Rather, the topics their videos address are the true stars of Ascension's content. And here are some of their most watched video titles. Why be Catholic and not just Christian? That's one of them. Or how about this? Pray with us, the Holy Rosary. Or what does the Catholic Church teach about gender identity? And do all good people go to heaven? How do demons actually work? Or how about this one? Can I smoke marijuana? Now, I'm not a Catholic, but those are some compelling topics. In fact, that's really how Ascension pulled me in. They just had questions that I wanted some answers to. They were answering questions that I was looking for. I'm not in their target audience, but I'm curious about the topics they're presenting in their own clear and concise little videos. So their videos make it very easy for me to get to know the Catholic Church. So when we're talking about useful information for our users, this is one thing to consider. Does it make it easy for us to be known? Sermon videos and podcasts are kind of the base level of this kind of content. Sermons articulate our values. They hopefully provide something useful for the listener. Also, hopefully, they address a topic that answers questions the user is asking. The other portion of the useful content equation involves producing content that reveals to the user something about themselves. Oftentimes, for us, this comes up in answer to a question of something like, do I agree with this point of view or not? People are seeking out this content in earnest because they're looking to interact or wrestle with their beliefs a bit. So the theological point of view is valuable to them. All this to say, the content that groups like Ascension produce is very user-focused. It's more about connecting with and informing the user than it is about broadcasting something about the organization. In a Venn diagram of these two types of content, the user-focused and the producer-focused, there's likely a lot of overlap. The call of the church of the future is to be intentional about this area of overlap because the digital world is a fickle space. And if users don't find what they want from you, they're just going to click on to someone who does provide what they want. So there you go. Trait 1 is authoritative, user-focused content. Trait 2 is this: the ministries platformed for the future by making connections online do pastoral care in digital spaces. Let's start here with the definition of pastoral care. And here I'm going to hone in on a definition I was offered in seminary. Pastoral care is pointing out the presence of grace or the presence of Jesus in a situation. So pastoral care becomes the shepherding act of nurturing others in the presence of grace. Something I find fascinating about Ascension's videos is that they often feel pastoral. I think this relates to presentational style. Ascension's presenters often use the second person voice, addressing the viewer as you. It's conversational in this case. So voice helps. So does the fact that the presenter addresses the camera directly. It connects personally. So those are a couple ways of personalizing a presentational video. And again, content matters here. Ascension's videos are direct about saying, we want to help you be a committed Catholic. There's a shepherding directive there. We've had a number of guest professors on this podcast who engage in pastoral care in similar ways. If you remember Bradley Larvick, he hosted the You Matter Zone through the Brad and Puppets channel on TikTok. The channel was all about the presence of grace, and Pastor Brad creatively used puppets to keep viewers moored in a state of grace. More recently, we talked with Reverend Brandon Robertson, who also uses TikTok to offer videos of encouragement and support to a population of people who feel disconnected from grace. Though these are often broadcast videos, they still shepherd hurting people towards connection and healing. And there are certainly more ways to offer this shepherding than just through videos. Some ministers use specialized discussion boards on Discord. Our friend Shane Russo recently launched GoBe.church. The Discord server for that church there has special sections for parenting support and healing ministry. Just a couple ideas. Ann Bosarge does daily prayer, and as we learned, often empowers users to pray for one another. There, the whole community is beginning to engage in pastoral care. Some pastors have begun offering online office hours. And one way to do this is to use a scheduling app and then invite people to a time to jump on something like a call or huddle or Zoom with you. Reverend David Petty with Crossfire Faith and Gaming utilizes this kind of scheduling, and I found it really helpful when I was trying to line up some time with him. I've noticed a curious thing in my forays into meta/virtual reality space. The event-focused ministries that I've participated in those spaces, they've been a little bit hit or miss in terms of participation. Where I've seen leaders have some sustained success is when they adopt a mindset of pastoral presence. So these leaders aren't creating specific events for doing ministry in VR. They're showing up in VR spaces and doing ministry. I haven't witnessed firsthand what this looks like, but in the anecdotes that I've overheard, it sounds like they're offering pastoral support and prayer to VR users who have expressed a willingness to talk with them. It's being a pastoral presence in the space they are in. We've moved into an age when people meet with doctors online, they do therapy online. We're going to need to keep identifying ways to engage in pastoral counseling and pastoral care online. Trait 3 of thriving online spiritual communities is this: they're not for everyone. Actually, that's not true. They are generally open to anyone, but they often exist for a specific community or population of people. We've talked with a lot of gaming-related ministry leaders. There's Jate Earhart, the Crossfire guys, Methodist Gaming, Checkpoint Church, Lux Digital Church. These are all digital ministries who have existed for years, and their longevity sprouts out of intentionality. They are intentional about the people with whom they're trying to build relationships. In this case, it's online gamers. Our go-to example for this episode, Ascension, is up front that their audience is Catholics. Brandon Robertson notes that his target connection is with people who are disaffected or estranged from church community. Everybody who we've talked with who is working at building community can definitively say they have a target in mind. And the more specific our targets are, the more likely we are to hit them. In the publishing world, they say your target audience description should not include the words anyone. That often defaults to an audience of no one. Our online communities might just operate on the same principle. We have to be specific. Now, I get why this feels uncomfortable to many of us. It feels uncomfortable to me, honestly. The church at large is sometimes thought of as being exclusive, and I don't want to feed that narrative. Church should not be exclusive. But there's a difference between exclusive and specific. And often in church, we miss that difference. We can be specific without being exclusive. David Spinks is the author of The Business of Belonging. He's the co-founder of CMX. He does a lot of work in community marketing. And he wrote a post about focusing on practice over purpose. And he offered as an example climate change communities. Now, climate change communities often flop, he found. It's not because people don't care about climate change. It's just that once they join these communities, they don't know what to talk about. The communities are high on purpose, but they're generally kind of low on practice. And I'll bet a lot of our church communities, our digital church communities, can feel the same way. So David has an exercise that helps define community practice. And I bring it up here because it actually helps us define our specific targets in building online spiritual community. He calls it finding your members' turpentine. I'll let him describe that anecdote, but it kind of missed for me. But the practice is still useful. He instructs us to take 30 minutes to write down 25 questions you believe your members are going to ask. And he offers these jumping off questions for you. What do your members wake up and think about every day? What are the little annoyances they have to deal with? What are the raw materials of their work? What details do they tend to obsess over? What are the questions that only your members would know to ask? This practice roots your online community in your users/members' reality, and it gives personality and vision to the people you hope to form relationships with. So I found it useful. We're going to move on to trait number 4, but first, let me tell you about safety in community. Safe Sanctuaries, Nurturing Trust Within Faith Communities is a new and comprehensive resource that continues the tradition of Safe Sanctuaries ministry by building on the trusted policies and procedures that have guided churches over the past 25 years. This resource contains theological grounding for the work of abuse prevention. It contains psychological insights about abuse and abuse prevention. It has basic guidelines for risk reduction. It has age-level specific guidance and step-by-step instructions on how to develop, revise, update, and implement an abuse prevention plan in your church or organization. For Christians, resisting evil and doing justice are ways that we live and serve Jesus. Safer Sanctuaries helps to do just that by framing this work as a life-giving, community-enhancing, and proactive endeavor. It enables communities to be empowered and flourish as they develop and implement policies and procedures that make everyone safer. So to learn more, go to safersanctuaries.org or give them a call, 1-800-972-0433. Check them out and build a little more care and safety into your community, no matter where it meets. Okay, trait number 4 for thriving digital ministries, they're making leaders online. A struggle we've heard across the church in this digital age relates to involving people who meet in new spaces, or who we meet in new spaces, involving them in the leadership of the church. And there are a bunch of reasons that this is a struggle. One is that our systems of leadership might be a little bit dated. In my denominational tradition, we often locate all the work of leadership within formal meetings of the church. So professionally, though, not many of us work that way anymore. I'm not sure we ever did, honestly. That's just one assessment, though. Another roadblock comes about because we have disassociation between where we meet people and where we actually involve them in leadership. An online congregant very well isn't likely looking to engage in leadership in the kind of brick and mortar analog church. They may not be concerned about trustees issues, for a base example. Thriving online communities first engage users in online leadership roles. I've already mentioned how Ann Bosarge has empowered members of the chapel online to pray for one another. So if you cruise through their Facebook group, you can see that in action, where somebody lifts up a prayer request, and then other members who have been designated as leaders huddle around that person for prayer. Sometimes they're posting prayer responses of their own or prayer prompts of their own. Several leaders who use Discord have elevated people to leadership through moderator roles. They noticed that some individuals were participating in a lot of the server discussion, so they approached these users with an invitation to act as moderators. You could do the same thing through a Facebook page or really any group, any discussion type forum. You can also invite regular users into posting or supply duties. Let them help create posts for social media, and then empower them as shepherds and creators. Now, this doesn't mean that people won't become more immersed in the whole life of the church, even the analog side of it, but the analog is not the first place they're looking to step into leadership. Okay, let's talk about trait number 5. I had a hard time expressing this one. It comes down to readily admitting who we are as organizations. So part of this, I guess, is being authentic. Another part is being open about who we are and what our goals are. I guess you could say that trait number 5 is really that thriving digital communities are who they are and they admit it. Firstly, they're not throwing up false fronts or facades. The pictures they show online aren't stock images. They're from the community. This is the authentic portion. It might feel easy to aspirationally represent our ministries online and make them sound or feel a little more advanced or connected or bigger than they are. But people can see through that. Somehow they know, they can tell. And it feels disengaging when someone's being false, even if it's a well-intentioned falsity. But also, ministries that do well online make themselves easy to know. Once again, we touched on this earlier. Users don't have to work hard to figure out who they are dealing with. They also don't have to work hard to figure out whether or not this is the right community for them or whether this is worth checking out some more. Some ways to be authentic include to admit that there is a person behind your social media posts. Use that person's name from time to time, especially when replying to comments, and especially, I think, on the next level when they're emotional or deep comments. Also, have consistent branding. Branding is just a way for people to get comfortable with your ministry and to know what you represent. So keep on brand. And don't take it for granted that people know how to contact you or to meet with you. Is your website up to date? Are service times and contact info easy to find? If not, people are just going to wander away. Also, share stories. So who has benefited from your ministry's activities? Share those stories. What does this ministry mean to you? Share that story as well. The positive stories can snowball. So once they come, grab onto those things and celebrate them. Also, it's okay to admit it when you've missed the mark. Again, we want to remind our users that there are real people behind the ministry logos and thumbnail pictures. So, all in all, those are 5 tips or traits for flourishing digital ministries. But wait, I have more. There are a number of sites I look to for inspiration and for tactics, so I thought I could pass those along as well. Again, I don't always agree with the theology of these, but find the information valuable. So one of them is Reverend Jim Keat, digital minister on YouTube. Jim is a past guest and does a lot of helpful videos with practical tips. Another is Ascension Presents on YouTube. I've talked enough about them already. You can also look at disorganized.religion on TikTok. This is the ministry of Sarah Tevis Towns. Her content hits on the questions people are asking. And she also did a YouTube series showing how she makes these videos. That's really helpful. I look at the HubSpot blog. Yeah, it's about marketing. It's also about digital trends, what activities people engage in digital spaces, how to be discoverable online, and more. It's really kind of helpful and fascinating. Another helpful blog is the Digivangelism blog. Sammy Kelly of Digivangelism was a past guest, and the blog has some great practical ideas for churches to implement, especially from kind of the 101 level, the just getting started level. Really useful information there. The MyCom Church Marketing Podcast is another good one. Dan Wunderlich and I have done crossover episodes, and it's because there's a lot of crossover in our topics that we address in our podcast. MyCom provides some really helpful tips for church marketing, which, as we've learned and been reminded of, is the opening of a relationship. And have I mentioned Resource UMC? They're the sponsor of this podcast. They have all kinds of blog articles and ideas for leaders in ministry. Another useful one for specifically digital expressions of church is the church.digital blog. This blog hosts all kinds of thoughts about applying tech and digital developments to ministry. And another person who we've already mentioned, David Spinks' Substack. David does all kinds of work in digital community building. His 11 pillars of community are really good, helpful, good to keep in front of you. Also, his post about building for believers is a great post. There are really so many more. But that's all I'm going to give you this time around, because I've talked enough and I'm ready to go and do. And I hope you are too. I'll see you online. Thanks to Safe Sanctuaries for their ongoing support. Safe Sanctuaries nurturing trust within faith communities is a new and comprehensive resource that continues the tradition of Safe Sanctuaries ministry by building on its trusted policies and procedures. This resource contains theological grounding for the work of abuse prevention, basic guidelines for risk reduction, has age-level specific guidance and step-by-step instructions on how to develop, revise, update, and implement an abuse prevention plan. If you want more ideas and tips for your digital ministry toolkit, then check out some more episodes of Pastoring in the Digital Parish. I mentioned a bunch already, but let me lift up a couple more I may not have yet alluded to. Digital community building through play and games from June of 2023 would be a helpful follow-up, as it recounts a couple stories of building online communities. Also, Digital Parish Real Community from May of 2023 talks quite a bit about people's expectations for digital community. So it would be a good fit here too. If you want to connect with the Pastoring in the Digital Parish community, check out our Pastoring in the Digital Parish group on Facebook. You can also send me questions and ideas for future sessions at digitalparish@umcom.org. Again, I'm Ryan Dunn. I would like to thank resourceumc.org, the online destination for leaders throughout the United Methodist Church that make this podcast possible. They host our website, pastoringinthedigitalparish.com, where you can find more online resources for ministry. Another session comes next week. So in the meantime, peace.